You got to win at least one of those. Obviously, we're hoping it's ours, but we'll see how that goes. I wanted to bring something up that was interesting that we haven't talked about yet, which is it's not official yet. There's been reporting that maybe it was premature, but it's getting that way, which is the House settlement and the NCAA lawyers reached an agreement on how to deal with NIL collectives. And basically what you have here is this whole clearinghouse where it checks that these NIL deals are fair market values. We've talked about it before. I believe this is all itself very much an antitrust violation and illegal and unlikely to withstand scrutiny by the courts. But at least until it gets overturned or if Congress does anything, this is the law of the land for right now. This clearinghouse run by Deloitte, NIL Go, which checks for the fair market value of NIL deals to make sure that, the cap for revenue sharing basically is the cap, and teams can't spend above it unless it's legitimate NIL, in their words. For example, like Cam Ward doing a deal with Bose because it's good for Bose, right? So that's go ahead.
NIL Go. Deloitte is running this. The NCAA is basically outsourced enforcement and procedural things to third parties. The NCAA is just going to sit back, license things, and collect money. Even the enforcement is on the programs and the conferences themselves. This seems like, as you mentioned, antitrust. It's collusion of the highest order to cap. Basically, what they want to avoid is teams negotiating in the dark with individual talents. They want to see written offers, and they will use something that is far from objective to determine a player's value, essentially keep the players down. Capitalism for me, socialism for you. There's talk of an executive order that is going to be drawn up. I don't think certainly we've seen it before when it comes to work stoppages. Football players, even in the pro ranks, they don't really have a leg to stand on, D, because careers are so short. They can't really afford a work stoppage tenfold when it comes to college athletics. What is the recourse here?
I mean, well, right now, so kind of bringing it all to the step-by-step. I think ultimately what's going to happen is it's going to get challenged in the courts, the whole framework, and it's going to get overturned, but there's a timing to that. That doesn't just happen overnight. You mentioned the executive order. Really, it'll come down to Congress, and there's certain legislation in the hopper, but that's happened before to ultimately say, NCAA, you have an exemption from antitrust law. Antitrust law doesn't apply to you. You can do whatever you want. Basically, you can make your own rules, and you could treat these athletes not like employees. That's what Congress. That's what NCAA would like Congress to do. That's why they got Charlie Baker, who's a political guy, former governor of Massachusetts, to try to lobby Congress to do that. That's the golden goose. That's like what would change the game for the NCAA and ensure their long-term survival in current form is if the Congress gave them that antitrust exception. That's why they want it so bad. Everything they do is pretty much geared towards that. Even the settlement, I think, is meant to just give Congress a framework that they can bless as opposed to starting from scratch. Because ultimately the settlement is just at least the stuff going forward, like the rules going forward, it's not going to last. And I think everybody knows that. But for right now, what does this mean? The story that we pulled up here from Front Office Sports. Before this clearinghouse that examines fair market value was going to treat collectives as something different. Basically saying, look, collectives, they serve no business purpose. It's all about just paying athletes. So we're not even going to treat them like every other company when it comes to determining fair market value. Effectively focusing on collectives, treating them differently, and trying to squeeze them out. Existential threat to collectives, like Canes Connection, which we'll talk about here in a second. But that's illegal as well. Ultimately, what happened is the plaintiffs' lawyers got together with the schools, and they decided that they're going to treat collectives like everybody else. So in determining whether a deal with the collective has fair market value, they'll treat the collectives just like any other company. There's no penalty because it's from a collective. So as a practical matter, what this does is it breathes new life into the collectives, because now the collectives are treated like everybody else. They can still operate. What's going to happen is once we figure out what the real market value, fair market value, I use that term loosely, but let's just say the NIL Go view on fair market value is for like a podcast appearance or a tweet or Instagram post, whatever it is that these players are doing, an autograph session. Once we figure out that fair market value, I think teams are just going to, or collectives are just going to kind of copy that across the country and say, all right, this is the value, then we're going to use that as our calculus to do X, Y, Z. And then ultimately you get more money for the player that is not subject to the cap. It allows you to go over the cap with money that's getting paid to the players. So if you're a fan of collectives, which I am, if you're a team with a great collective, which we are, this is good news because it makes it a lot more likely that you're not going to be subject to an arbitrary cap that, number one, will penalize teams with better collectives than other teams like us. Number two, invites cheating because for years you couldn't pay players anything. So that was like a zero cap. And SEC schools were paying players anyways, and the NCAA didn't enforce it. So you don't want that to come back either. So I think this is all very, very good news. And if you were worried about the viability of Canes Connection, you don't have to be. And if now you want to be part of it, now that you've seen some of the clarity from all the stuff that's been happening, sign up for Canes Connection. Use promo code CIS50. Go to CanesConnection.com/CIS. We got a new promo code. If you see the promo code CIS50 when it prompts you to do a promo code. Still use the same link, but when you use CIS50 promo code, you get 50% off your first month of Canes Connection monthly membership. So it used to be 20, now it's 50, and still get access to the same kind of swag, events, and then the private Zooms with me, which will be starting during practice season, the camp, because I will be giving you guys practice nuggets that I cannot say in a public forum like this. So if you want to know what's going on in practice during camp, CanesConnection.com/CIS. Use promo code CIS50. You get 50% off your first month, and then you are going to be, you'll be right there with us in the trenches, supporting this team, getting us to the next level, being part of all the success that's going to come in the future. And you're going to be the only people knowing what's going on at practice, aside from the people that are already there. And then, but by the way, so just some tweet that just came out. Our buddy Kevin Clark actually just sent it to the group chat. ESPN star, future replacement for Feinbaum when he retires. And there you go. There's a tweet that just came out. Cory Booker. This is, I guess, a quote from Frank Poloni. How do you pronounce his name? This is one of your guys. Poloni?
One of your guys. One of your Italians?
What are you, is that, you're Italian, right?
One of my Italians?
One of your Italians. He says that Cory Booker, so speaking for Cory Booker, but Democrats here, which is going to be just, forget the politics of it. This is the reality of how this thing is there you go, Polone. The politics of how this thing works is you're going to need a little bit of bipartisan support. You're going to need some Democrats to vote for it. And that's going to be the challenge, just because of the way it's laid out is more along the lines of like labor versus companies. So basically what this guy's saying, this tweet just came out right now, or at least I just saw it right now. Said that Booker's not going to support the deal. And then if it passes the House, it's dead in the Senate because of the need for 60 votes to avoid the filibuster. And this is, again, the college sports bill that's currently in the House Energy and Commerce, what's it called? Committee. So this is the legislation I talked about earlier that's trying to give NCAA an antitrust exemption to basically break antitrust law and make their own rules. It sounds like there's going to be some resistance from the Democrat side of the aisle. And look, putting the politics aside, most people hate the NCAA. In the Supreme Court, they lose unanimously, right? The guy that hit them the hardest was Kavanaugh. So I don't even see this being something that's going to have a ton of, going to have unanimous support from the Republican side. And I think just everybody hates NCAA. Although the problem is, you have you clearly, college sports, because it's so unregulated right now, there's clearly a need for some kind of order from everybody. And this is one opportunity for order. So that can have some appeal to certain people. But ultimately, I think collective bargaining is just the way this has to end. And that's going to be fought tooth and nail by a lot of people. But I think that's the only thing that really makes sense here ultimately, at the end of the day, the antitrust exemption would circumvent a lot of stuff, but it sounds like that's going to face some resistance.
Well, I don't. Unfortunately, we have enough month sample to know that if there is indeed an executive order, Republicans will tend to fall in line. Hopefully, the president stays out of this, because I think the best way to get to any sort of solution, which it doesn't seem like we'll have in time for the football season, the House is in recess until September. They were supposed to be in session for at least 3 more days. I don't know. Something happened where they decided to call it off early. Who knows? I'll try to read the internet. But I think if the executive order does come into play, that complicates it a little bit, because then we're looking at a more partisan situation. But ultimately, these things can get undone. It's far from, the story is far from being fully told, and we know that we don't have it perfect right now. But what is being talked about is, quite frankly, really terrifying. If you're a student athlete, really, if you're a capitalist, it should be terrifying. These players have every right to maximize their value, and they shouldn't be subjected to different rules that athletic directors and head coaches don't need to subscribe to. There isn't such a thing as a fair market when it comes to coaches. You talk to Jimmy Sexton and you kind of figure it out. And athletes, especially big name athletes, should be afforded the same opportunity.
Yeah, no, listen, when you're given an exception to violate antitrust law, the reason you get an exemption is because you're violating antitrust laws. So,
like Major League Baseball.
Well, Major League Baseball is collective bargaining. So
now,
right now it does. Now, look, it could go the other way too. I personally think in Major League Baseball, the players' union has too much power, and they've done things that have hurt the sport tremendously.
Fair enough.
So I would like to see that balance recalibrated a bit. But right now it's an imbalance where you just have the players with really no power, and it's not helping the product. It's crazy right now. I actually think the product's gotten better with no rules than with the rules we had before, because you have more parity. I think the playoff is a disaster, as we've talked about a million times. But as far as actually more teams being in the mix, I think that's a good thing, because you don't have Georgia and Alabama just hoarding all the players because they're buying they're moving families from Hawaii to Alabama, under the table with no one asking any questions. So I think no rules has been better than the rules we had before. But ideally, you have rules. You have better conferences. You have, the Southeastern Conference has teams from the Southeast in it. The Atlantic Coast Conference has teams from the Atlantic Coast in it. The Big Ten is the Midwest Conference. The Pacific, whatever you call it, is now having all those Western teams, where Oregon's not playing Ohio State during the season in a conference game. It was a joke. So that is, I think it'll be better for everybody, including the product, once we get some rules under the table. And look, a cap, if it's a real cap, that's great. Like a real cap like we have in other sports, it's legit. That's why the New York Giants can't buy their way to success. It's fine. I like that you have the New York Giants not having an unfair advantage over the Kansas City Chiefs. But you got to do it. You got to do it right. And right now, we're far away from there. Let's see here.
Go ahead.
Oh, Dave 50 asked about the preseason hype video. He said, "How are you feeling about it?" Not gonna lie, the one you did for Mario's first year's instant classic didn't work out like I hope. That thing was funny. I appreciate it, man. We're up in the production value this year. All right, so we're gonna be trying to take it to the next level with certain things. I think we'll go with more songs, more production. We'll get the thing rolling. I need more bad headlines. I need more bad headlines for Florida State, and Notre Dame, so I have more stuff to make fun of. I mean, we have plenty because we destroyed them so badly, each of them, the last time we played them. But I'd like more material. So hopefully,
I just wanted
some kind of scandal.
Real quick, D. We had our buddy Phil here, who's a frequent listener. This is the guy that I'm listening to for pronunciations from now on. I'm going to bring this up. But congratulations! I believe this is him. Who tweeted yesterday that he was the valedictorian for the 2025 MBA class. So continue giving us your pronunciation. Give us everything you got, because this is where we struggle sometimes. Congratulations!
Shout out to P Sizzle. Congratulations! That's awesome, man. Good job on you. And if it's not you, you should pretend it's you, anyways.
I think it is him.
I do want to put a ribbon on that ACC discussion that we were having week 1. Yeah, I don't feel great about Syracuse at Tennessee. I certainly don't feel great about FSU hosting Alabama. But those are in windows that there are a lot of other games going on. There's other distractions. Yeah, they may be marquee in those windows, but you got other games that you're betting on. The standalone games is what I'm going to key on, pun intended, with Georgia Tech. And certainly Clemson LSU is a huge game for the CFP implications. And we've seen Brian Kelly fall on his face repeatedly week one. He's got to look. LSU might be in on Rhett Lashley if Brian Kelly doesn't get it together over there, because they got a ton of resources. And then you got Virginia Tech on a Sunday against South Carolina, neutral site game, and then the big closer, which could really shape the narrative if Miami's very impressive Sunday night against Notre Dame. So a lot of standalone opportunities, and let's not forget that Monday night game, TCU at the aforementioned Bill Belichick.
Yeah, no, it's going to be it's fun, man. This is going to be a great start to the college football season. They fired up about it. We'll see. I think LSU Clemson, if just of all the games, I know Ohio State plays Texas. Besides our game, that's the game I'm most interested in, because you have an LSU team that's really supplemented its roster with the portal, with recruiting, et cetera. A lot of hot seat pressure on Brian Kelly. Clemson is the other way. They're in real feel good mode right now. With how they finished the season, with what they brought back. So that game's going to tell us a lot about both programs. And I think that's going to be, talk about SEC, ACC, that's the game that's going to tell us quite a bit about where those two conferences are respectively. Also on the Canes Connection discussion, which we just had, I want to pull up a tweet from our buddies at Canes Connection for an event that is this Saturday at the Miami Hurricane team store. So Saturday, July 26th, mark your calendars, 3 p.m. Armando Blunt, we just talked about, rising superstar, Tony Johnson, and Keelan Marion are two portal additions at wide receiver guys who are going to play. Ahmad Moten, great young man, really fun to be around. I interviewed him for Canes Connection, or for Storm Sessions for the University of Miami. You want to be part of this, 3 to 4 p.m. Saturday, Miami Hurricane team store. That's right there by University of Miami on US 1. Get some photos, meet some players, get some autographed gear. These are really, really great events. Great for kids, great for families, great for fans. It's not like just some giant convention center. This is very, very just personal setting. Get to really meet these kids and talk to them. Strongly recommend going out there. Johnny Lagoon will be out there Saturday, 3 to 4 p.m.
And I'm proud to announce I'm going to practice what I preach. I was waiting to see what was going to go on with the collectives and all the politics involved. But I will be signing up for Canes Connection, giving another hefty donation over there. And you know what the main selling point was, is the private Zooms with D Money. I got a lot of political takes that I think that would be a more appropriate forum to fire off with D Money over there. But a massive deal, 50% going to football, 50% going to the women's basketball. Love what Coach Trish is doing. Pete,
top 5 portal class.
Been a while since we've kicked the tires on Miami basketball. Really impressive offseason for Jay Lucas in his first year. We got the news tidbit that they're playing Florida in Jacksonville. Any cause for excitement here? I know we're getting some recruiting interest in the